Hello everyone and welcome to SoftTest Ireland's June event. I'm here with Daniel Knott and I'm very excited to be finally talking with Daniel. We have spent quite a few years exchanging emails trying to get to meet up, so I'm delighted that Daniel could spend some time with us this evening. Before I introduce Daniel, I just want to go through a few housekeeping things. Oops. So tonight's webinar is mobile test management. We'll hear more from Daniel in a moment. This talk will take approximately 40 or so minutes. Daniel wasn't quite sure. And then we'd have a few minutes at the end for some questions. So for those of you who haven't joined us on Crowdcast before, please use Chrome browser. That is the recommended browser for this talk. And also, please only open Crowdcast in one tab. It gets itself into trouble if you use more than one tab for Crowdcast. Again, if you haven't joined us on a previous webinar, you can ask Daniel some questions by using the Ask a Question function, which you will find at the bottom of your Crowdcast screen. I will ask Daniel those questions at the end of his talk. You can also vote on your favorite questions if you see a question from somebody else, and we will try and get to the most popular, most voted for questions. And of course, you can use the chat function on the right-hand side of Crowdcast if you want to chat during this webinar or during the questions session. We'll try and see if we can get a conversation going if there's some interesting questions being discussed. Moving on, for those of you who got the SoftTest email, we have our Eurostar competition. So anybody who has attended our webinars so far this year, we've had 4, is in with a chance to win a Eurostar ticket for September this year. So we will need to gather the attendees for this webinar tonight, and we will put everybody's name into a hat and pick our winner. And our winner will be notified by their email that they have won their Eurostar ticket. So best of luck, everybody, and good luck to our potential winner. Just want to spend a few minutes to say thank you to our sponsors for making these webinar series possible. So thanks to Explio and Deloitte for their continued support for SoftTest Ireland. And finally, we just want to say thank you to everybody for your continued support and for listening to our SoftTest webinars. We will be taking a break during the summer, and our next webinar we hope to be scheduling in September. So keep an eye out for the notification which will come through your email. So I would just like now to welcome Daniel. He is one of the leading experts in the testing community on mobile and smart device testing. He has many years experience, and he has done a few roles in mobile space, and I'm really looking forward to hearing some more about that. He has written a couple of books on the topic, which you will find on his website, which we emailed out to you in the invitation. So Daniel, when you're ready, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the nice introduction. Yeah, hello everybody. Let me share my screen. Let's see if everything goes the way it should be. So sharing the screen. So you can see it. I can start the presentation now. And PowerPoint So you should be able to see the screen, correct?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, then let's get started. Yeah, welcome everybody and to my talk tonight, and thanks for the invitation. And yes, you're right. Finally, we made it up. We made an appointment to finally give a talk in the SoftTest Island. So today's topic is about mobile test management done right. And before I dive into the topic, I would like to quickly introduce myself. So yeah, hi, I'm Daniel Knott from Germany. I'm currently working as a senior product manager in a company called Sing in Germany. Next to my product manager role, I'm still a mobile tester by heart. As you have heard, I wrote some books, but I'm still also still connected with the software testing community, because I think it's a great community. It's a lot of fun of testing things out and playing around with things, learning new technologies and all this kind of things. So that's great. If you'd like to connect with me, you'll find me on Twitter, but you can also find some more ways to connect with me on my blog, Adventures in QA. Send me an email, send me whatever type of message you would like to send me, questions, whatever is out there. I'm always happy to help out. And yeah, that's about my person, and let's get started. So what's in today for today's talk? Let's take a quick look at the agenda. So today I would like to talk about the current state of the mobile market. So giving you a quick overview where we're standing, what numbers we have to expect, where we're coming from. So that's one part. Then I would like to talk about the user expectations that mobile users have and what does this mean for our test management efforts. I would like to talk about getting to know your customers. What can you do in order to gather some information, in order to learn more about them, about their habits and how they use mobile products. I would like to give you an idea and a glimpse of idea on how to involve customers into your development phase within the team, and how you can make use of this knowledge also as a software tester. Then, of course, I would like to talk about some mobile testing scenarios, which, of course, are helpful in order to make to establish a good mobile test management and to be successful with your testing activities. I will highlight 2 mobile testing challenges. Of course, there are way much more out there available, but according to the time, I picked only 2 topics for tonight, and I will talk about them as well. I will talk about how to release a mobile product frequently, what you can do, how to establish a process there, what has been helpful in the past years in my current company, and last but not least, some key takeaways. So you see, it's quite a packed agenda, and let's get right into some numbers. So current state of the mobile market. So one of the impressive numbers that I found while creating those slides is that in 2020, there were more than 1 billion devices sold on the world. It's quite impressive, right? Still in 2020, like after 13 years or like 14 years now that the iPhone is available in the market, there's still more than 1 billion devices being sold. It's crazy. It's the craziest number that I found it like that. And also a really interesting number is that by end of 2023, almost 4.3 billion users will use a smartphone all over the world. That's also quite impressive and shows that what the mobile market still offers in terms of growth and potential. Also, on the revenue side, it's quite impressive to see that by end of 2023, the mobile app revenue is roughly about $933 billion US dollars. So still, it's still growing. It's growing a lot. So there's a lot of potential if you would like to monetize your services, your products on the mobile market. It's still an investment. So mobile is not yet like going down from the growth perspective. Apple and Google, they both have, of course, an App Store, and both stores offer more than 4 million apps. I also found this number quite high and impressive, because looking at also the competition. So in case you have a mobile product on one of those stores, in most cases you have them on both stores, depending on your target customers. It's quite hard actually, first of all, to be seen among those 4 million apps, and also it's really hard that in case your app is not really, like, let's say, in a good quality state, it's much easier for other users to go to somewhere else and pick a competitor app. So you really have to do it right, otherwise you lose a lot of traction on your app. Also quite interesting is the usage of millennials. So 21% of millennials users open apps more than 50 times per day. It's quite an impressive number. that almost 70% of the overall US digital media time comes from mobile apps. That's also, I find it really, really impressive that like so many users on the US market just go through mobile apps and consume their digital media. An average smartphone user uses 10 apps per day and 30 each month. It's not that big of a number. If you look at yourself, how many apps you have installed on your device, I bet it's more than 30, 40 apps that you have downloaded. Maybe you downloaded it but never opened one of those apps, and that only 10 apps were used per day. And that's quite an impressive number. And if you have want to be like successful, you have to be among those 10 apps, because otherwise you might lose activity, you might lose revenues and this kind of thing. So it's also important to keep in mind that not that many apps are being used by users these days. And last but not least, in 2020, there were more than 200 million app downloads. It's also quite impressive to see. So this should give you like a quick overview of the current state of the mobile market. At the end of the slide deck that I can also share later on with you, I have some more resources where you can find some more statistics, how the mobile market will evolve in the near future and things like that. So it's quite interesting to dive into that topic as well. So let's go to the mobile technology and how this changed our life. So for tonight, I brought 3 examples that should show you, in case you don't know yet and you're new to mobile testing and to the mobile market, how the mobile technology changed our life over the past decades, basically. I think you have seen this picture, right? On top, you see 2005, the Pope election, where everybody was staring at the balcony, watching the new Pope being elected and being showing up on the balcony. And then only 8 years later, everybody was seeing this ceremony or this moment of history through their smartphone devices. And I think it's quite impressive to see how our lives have been changed. Even though in 2005 there was an early adopter with this old feature phone. There's another example which you might have seen already. I found this once on Twitter. When I first saw the tweet, it's like, okay, why are those people standing in the middle of the ocean or at the beach, in the middle of the waves, looking at their smartphone? And if you're fast enough, you can type on the Twitter link, but I can also show you the result is that people were playing Pokemon Go. And I found this like really crazy, because people really going into the ocean and playing this game, and they don't stop off natural things and habits. And so I found it really impressive how the mobile technologies and how mobile apps changed our behavior as well, right? So how we're using our product and the app. And the third example that I brought to you is also quite an impressive number. I think it's crazy. It's that in 1999, more than 80 billion photos have been taken on normal, regular film. Like taken to film, you had to brought the film to a supermarket. It took like 2 weeks until you got your picture, maybe 1 day, depending on the service. And this was quite an impressive number, right? And this data is shared by Benedict Evans on his blog. And there's another impressive number. Only 16 years later, more than 2 trillion photos have been shared on social media and on the internet. And it's 2 trillion photos have been shared. And now imagine how many pictures have been taken, because not every picture that you take, right, that you're going to share. It's only the number of shared pictures on the internet and on social media. And this should show you how crazy the mobile market is, and how smartphones changed our way of communicating, the way of using our devices. And it's impressive. And this is, I think, a great start into the topic, because it shows also like how important those devices are for users and for us. And even if you look at yourself, I bet some of you are right now on your mobile device. I mean, either doing something in parallel, watching a movie or something like that. So it's always like the second screen is coming around. And this also has an effect on us and mobile testers, right? And this affecting our testing activities. And with that, I would like to go into the test management process. So this is like the test management process from a really high level point of view. So we have a test planning activity, we're doing some test designs, we're doing some test execution, we have some defined exit criteria when we stop our testing activities. Then we have some reporting in place, being it automated, being it logs, being manual testing reports, whatever. And when we're thinking about the mobile use case, there's so many more to think about. And those are, first of all, user expectations. I have said this for quite some time now, that mobile users have a really high expectations, and we come to that in a second. Mobile devices. It's not only browsers. We also have mobile devices, different manufacturers to cover in the mobile testing management. And this affects a lot of our testing activities. We have different scenarios, coming to them as well later. So the testing scenarios play a huge effect on our test management process and overall on the testing activities. And we also have to keep in mind the release cycles. They're different from like traditional products. I'm not talking about web products, but maybe like more like desktop applications. There are different release cycles, and you have to be fast to catch up with those release cycles as well. And there are more topics that I will not cover today, but I will mention some further on reading for you. So let's get started with the high user expectation for mobile products. Again, there are some numbers. So an average American checks every 12 minutes their smartphone, and 10% of people even check their phone every 4 minutes. And this should show you again, like how important mobile products are for us these days. I mean, you can easily go to your smartphone, being it Android, being an Apple device, and check the most used apps, for example, on your screen. What are the most used apps that you use? Or you can even define minutes of using some of the apps. Do not like overdo it, right? And so that's to show you that we have like really, we check the devices often when we're bored, when we're aligned, when we're queuing, when we're traveling. I mean, this is not something that we're doing quite often these days, but maybe we're commuting, some of us back to the office. So it has a high impact on our things, and especially if users paying a lot of money for their mobile devices, and they pay like a lot of money for high quality devices. They also have a high expectation on the products running in those devices. And this is something you always should keep in mind. Mobile users have a high expectation. 88% of our smartphone time is spent on apps. So it's not on system apps like system settings, but it's in apps, which is also quite interesting. That's something that I found really interesting when I found the number in the first place, is that 80% of users delete an app after the first usage. So keep in mind, whenever your app is not really like sufficient or like efficient for the user in the very first beginning, it gets deleted really fast. And that's what I meant with having the 4 million potential competitor apps on the market. Hopefully you don't have 4 million competitors on the market, but maybe you have another one or a second one. You have to compete with those people for sure, but also you have to compete on quality. So users really need to love your product in order to use it as well. There are some top 4 reasons for deleting an app. First of all, it's the bad design. So if users don't like your app, they will delete it. It's bad usability. If it's not usable at all at the very beginning or after some time, they will delete it. The loading time is important. Users expect to be an app loaded under 2 seconds. And of course, app crashes is also something that users really hate, and they are going to delete it. And in bad case or in worst case scenario, they're leaving also some bad feedback on the app stores. Also quite interesting to see also the high expectations for mobile products is that nearly 60% of users are going to delete an app that requires a registration. It's the same case in my case. If I download an app and the first screen that I see is a registration form, it's like, oh, again, I have to register to yet another service that I might want to try out for a day and see if it's beneficial for me, if it helps me in my daily life or bringing me some benefits. I don't want to register. I want to try it out. Maybe then you can integrate a demo, for example, or show some videos how the product might look like. But don't show a registration up front, because almost 60% will right away delete your product, which is a quite high number. And I already talked about this, is that users expect an app to load under 2 seconds. So if you have the splash screen usually from the platforms that you need to implement, like seeing your logo, company logo, but then after 2 seconds, the app must be ready to use and it's smooth scrollable through everything. And while working over the past 10 years in the mobile business, speed and all those things that I just said is good design, usability, that matters a lot, and users have a really high expectation that they just expect it. Yeah, and while working on that, I came up with a principle that is inspired by the KISS principle, which is like keep it simple and short. I created the so-called KISSU. It's like, and the abbreviation stands for keep it fast, simple, and usable. I also wrote a blog post about it, as you can see, some years ago. It's still on my blog. You can find some more information, but I usually print this one out, put it into the team space when we're working on native apps, that everybody has this in mind, like really like keep it fast, simple, and usable. this is always important to keep in mind. And then you have also, when you're talking about certain feature development and it's not fast, simple, usable, you should re-ask yourself, is this something that we should ship or we should improve maybe? Okay, coming to the next one is getting to know your customer. Yeah, why is this important, right? Because we could ship an app and it might be useful for our customers. It might be helpful for them, but this is also important to do, because otherwise you might lose your customers. So first of all, you should get information about the user needs and the preferences. So if you know for example, your target audience, you get information how they, which problem they would like to solve. Of course, if you have a service that solves a certain problem, you might not do it for the mobile development. But if you this is a small startup and you start from scratch, you have an idea, you should gather some user needs and preferences. What would like the users be solved with the service? And then, of course, you should collect data, right? I mean, if you haven't yet your product out on the market, you should do some market research, getting some studies, help with external agencies to gather some information, to collect information about your potential target group, and use this information in the development, also even further in the discovery phase of the product development, and also then later on with testing to see that really if those market research needs are fulfilled. Of course, if you have a product out there, I bet you have tracking implemented like everybody out there. Use the tracking data as well to see usage patterns and how the users use your app. And is the app used in the way you want to be used, or have users found workarounds across your product? And this also might be helpful for you as a tester. And then last but not least, user interviews are also important to do, because then you get in direct contact with your customers and ask them specific questions. And this is helpful as well for the development and testing phase, but I'll come to that in some more minutes. Hello?
Hello, Daniel. We can see you again.
What happened?
I don't know. It was disconnected on your side. As I said, it's the joy of doing a test demo or test presentation.
Oh damn! Where I've lost you? Because I was just talking. Now I heard this sound, and
So you were talking about know your customers.
know your customers. So let me share again my screen.
And you were on the third segment.
The third. So okay, then I was talking quite some time on my own. Okay. Let me go back to the. No,
It
that's
was the
it.
next.
This one?
Yes, this one. Yes.
Oh, already. Okay. That's my bad. I'm sharing again. I
Thank
hope
you.
that it remains.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry for the hiccup. So I have to rewind my brain a bit. Outline most scenarios and make them transparent to the company and team. That's important, right? Because if you have gathered all kinds of information about your customers out there and your target group, um, it's important also to share this information, because sometimes what I've seen in the past is that this information is only on the product manager's hand and maybe on some business analyst's hands, but not in the team. And this is important that you also have, as a mobile tester or as a developer, you have access to this kind of information. So that's important. If you have this kind of information and you have maybe 4 user values defined in your team or in the company, get this information. This is so helpful for you as mobile testers to rely on those data, because then you can really focus your testing activities and also the development activities on the user values. So if your product or service fulfills a certain need, focus only on those needs, on priorities, right? That's what I want to say here. And yeah, that's what I said, is that mobile testers can plan their testing activities around those data, because then you can narrow down all your testing activities. Because otherwise, as you are maybe familiar with mobile testing, there's quite some things that can go wrong, and there's so many activities that you can perform. So that's why it's important to focus and to plan activities around your customers and around your product. That is really important. Okay, then how to involve your customer in the development. Again, some bullets that I brought today is first of all is important, or it's one idea that you can do. I'm not saying you have to, but it's to establish a beta testing community. That's what we have done, especially on our the Google Play console. It's easy. You can just click a button, and your app is like enabled for beta testing. And then the customers, they can join the beta testing app development, so to say. And with that, then you can decide if you do like nightly builds to the beta testing community, or you do weekly builds, depending on your cycle, right? And what we've done is we not only have the beta testing community or the beta testing enabled, but we also established a community. So on our platform, we have like a closed group where we invited those beta testers, and we can really ask them specific questions. How do you like the product? What you would like to improve? Where do you see problems? What bugs have you seen? And so forth and so forth. And you get really in a really good conversation with the community and with your users. And they like it because they feel valued. Again, then you can send the regular pre-builds also to colleagues and customers, not only to customers. You can send those pre-builds to the customers in the beta testing community. On iOS, for example, you can use TestFlight, and once you have like a beta testing community established, you can send those pre-builds to those colleagues, to just customers as well. But if you have like working in a bigger corporation, you can also send the nightly builds, for example, to your colleagues. That's what we have done. We have more than 2,000 colleagues in the company, and these colleagues are not allowed to use the production apps. So we are sending those apps, those pre-built apps to our colleagues. So they have to use the app and they have to give feedback, which is already a really good thing, because you get early feedback on the development state of your product. Of course, one thing that you could do is integrating service to your app. So to involve the customers really early in the life cycle. You can ask them specific questions, like short questions after a successful operation, or even after an error. You can ask them, hey, do you like that? Or what have you seen? Can you describe it? And things like that. There's various SDKs that you can integrate and to do so. You should sync on a regular basis, not only with your product manager or with the user interface designer or UX or with the developers, but also, for example, with the product facing service units. So for example, customer support, customer care. That's what I'm doing on a regular basis. I'm going there and talking to them. Hey, what are the biggest complaints that we get from our users? Can you give me some information? Can you give me some contact details of the customers if they're willing to? Then we can talk to them and involve them into the development as well, which I think is really helpful, and it's helping us a lot. Yes, you should actually do conducting user interviews in your own office. Due to the pandemic, it might not be possible to invite them to your office, but what we have done since now more than a year, we're doing this so-called online user feedback coffee. So what does it mean? We have every 2 weeks, we're inviting 4 customers in a Zoom call, and then every team who signed up for the feedback coffee round has 15 minutes per customer to show him or her early prototypes, asking questions about product, showing the real product and things like that. So this is also important and really helpful for us to involve in the early development phase, and also testing activities, because there, as tester, we already get some ideas how the product is being used by customers, right? Because sometimes we are like focusing on our activities, on our test plans, but this might be not enough because products are used different outside of the office and of the own usage patterns. Also, one thing that somebody in the team at least should do is checking the App Store reviews and comments. What I've done is I developed a habit. Basically, in the morning, I check the user feedback on those stores, reading every review, and then if user is stuck and giving like valuable feedback, of course, there's somebody saying, okay, app is crashing or it's not working. You can check something else in the logs later on, but might not be helpful for users because we cannot help them back, right? Because we don't know who actually wrote this comment. So in case user is specific, like saying, hey, I cannot send, let's say, a message. And then maybe I can give him a workaround. Okay, you can go tap 3 buttons here, do like this. And then with that workaround, the button works again because we know the bug is already there. So you can give some valuable feedback, some tips, and this is what users really like. And yeah, what I just said is you should also check every error reportings and log files from users. You get this information, for example, on the Google Play Store. You see the error crash reporting, see what section crashes the most. You should focus your development and fixing activities there. And also the log reports on if you use like a distribution tool to distribute the apps, you get some information as well. And this is helpful for you to narrow down the testing activities because you see, okay, this section has a lot of errors. Let's do an exploratory testing session there, and then we can maybe tick some bugs off, and then we have a much more stable product. And all those steps are really something to involve customers in the development. Some of them are more like engaging with the customers, and some are more passive engagement of the customers. But still, it's a lot of value that you're bringing to the team. Okay, so then let's move on to the mobile testing scenarios. Mobile testing scenarios is really different from app to app. So depending on the app use case, it differs. So I brought 3 pictures. So it's always like a nice example that I'm bringing up is like in the first place is you are having an outdoor sport activity app. I mean, you can record your activities on a skiing slope or while cycling or whatever you want to do on sports activities. It might be used on top of the mountain, but also down in the valley. So you need to really see, is the app working in this kind of scenarios, like with good network provider, with no carrier network and things like that. Or also with the windy conditions, with cold fingers, with gloves and everything. Another scenario can be at the beach. So one example that always comes to my mind is you're like on the beach, you see there's a nice Wi-Fi sign, you have to connect to a captive portal, but maybe this captive portal you cannot read because the contrast of the color, of the text color and the background is not something that you can see. So all those kind of scenarios you have to keep in mind depending on the app use case. Or for example, a city example, if you have an app that relies on GPS data, and you are like, I don't know, if this picture, if this is New York or somewhere else, it's sometimes hard to get GPS connection on those kind of environments. And this has a huge effect on your mobile testing activities and the scenarios. So that's important. So the environment, and what also is important is that the app tech stack also influences the testing scenarios. So for example, what I want to say with that is that most apps these days rely on a backend service. So we have like the app, the front-end client, you have an API, and then you have a backend service. And this tech stack also influences your testing activities. So it's not only that you have to focus on let's say the front end, like the app itself, but also on the API and also on the backend. because these three components make the overall product experience complete. So it's important also to look behind the scenes, basically. So what are some of those scenarios you should cover? So yeah, one of these is, for example, interrupt testing. So while using your app, while using your product, maybe have a second device and call your phone, call your device, see what's going to happen, or send some notifications to the device. This can be done with emulators, but also with the simulators. Or as you said, you choose a second device to do some interrupts. Or even interrupt is you click the power button of the device and send it to standby. It's interruption, and you should see how your app is behaving on that. Is the app like saving the data, keeping the state where it is at the moment, and things like that. Permissions, yeah, you should also check for permissions, right? I mean, the platforms Apple and Google are providing quite good, let's say, boundaries and guardrails, what you can do with permissions, but still you have to check the permission handling, the permission flows. So, for example, you revoke access on the system settings of the operating system, that your own product cannot access the camera, for example, or the microphone. And then you go back to your product and see, okay, what is the app doing? Is it crashing? Is it showing an error message? Or is it catching up with the permissions flow and asking the user again for permission and all these kind of things? Standby testing is another scenario that I'm doing quite often. So it's just using the app in any kind of fashion, or doing some operations, and then out of nowhere, just tap the standby, like the power button, and put the device into standby. Maybe the app was doing some operations in the background. Maybe it was like processing something, and then what's going to happen? We don't know, right? So that's something that we should test. We bring back the device, turn it on, enter the PIN code if there's any, and then you can see if the app is behaving correct. That's a nice scenario. Do it. Sensors. Yeah, I mean, all modern devices are packed with plenty of sensors. Gyroscope, acceleration sensor, and GPS, whatever. And if your app relies on one of those sensors, you should also test against those sensors, especially on Android and also on iOS, on different device models. There are different chips installed, different sensors installed. So this is also important to keep an eye on and to test against. Accessibility testing is important. So if your product should be available for every kind of people, like with visual impairment or with any kind of impairment, you should really also keep accessibility testing in mind. There are some techniques you can do. You can use a screen recording tool that is like reading the screen reader, what I wanted to say, something you should do, or you can change the text size or the font size in the app or in the system, see how the app behaves. Is the text visible, or color contrast and things like that, or can the app be used with only one hand, with one finger, or do I really need to have like two hands, for example? All those kind of scenarios you should keep in mind while testing the product, in case, of course, you have accessibility on your list of requirements. Security, yeah, it's always a huge topic, security testing. I'm always asking experts, to be honest, because security is such a big field itself, and I don't call myself a security expert at all. So I'm trying to get some help. Luckily we have in the company a security team, so I can always ask them for specific questions. Because otherwise it's too dangerous if you miss out security testing and you have like a hole in your system, and maybe your credit card data from your customers getting stolen, or all the data got stolen. This is a nightmare for a company. Third-party apps, yes, also something you should test. So always the nice example that I'm bringing up is like the keyboard. On iOS and Android, you can install third-party keyboard apps. One example is SwiftKey, but there are like plenty of other keyboards that you can install. And we had also always some funny problems with that, because sometimes the third-party apps, in this case the keyboard, has a different height than the system keyboard. And need to make sure that, for example, that your UI components can also handle the different height of keyboards, so that no button is blocked by the keyboard or anything like that, so that the user is not stuck in this kind of scenarios. It all happened. I've seen lots of things happen there, and something you should always keep in mind. Gestures, yeah, of course. Smartphone these days can handle multiple finger inputs. It's not only one finger, two finger, three, it's four, sometimes even more. You can also rotate, pinch to zoom, all those variants. I mean, there are nice examples out there. Again, if your app is supporting those gestures, you have to test against them. And sometimes you can also use multiple fingers to have like simulate really fast input. I also found like lots of funny things in my career. Yeah, multitasking also something you should cover, like putting the device in the background, opening it up again, see how the app behaves. Is the data again correct? Is the processing correct? These kind of things. So play around with this. Something I do sometimes in meetings when I'm bored, like doing some multitasking tests. It's really easy to do and really fast. App data, yeah, you should check if the mobile app consumes not too much data, especially mobile data, because some users still rely on expensive mobile data plans. So it's important that your app is not consuming like tons of megabytes or even gigabytes of traffic or data, or of mobile data. If mobile data is being used, maybe you should ask user, hey, this is maybe a heavy operation. Are you really want to do this now in your LTE network or 3G network? Yes, no, and then you give the feedback user the possibility to do its own decision. In-app purchase, yeah, really important. If you have like an in-app purchase product in place, make sure first of all you fulfill the guidelines from iOS and Android. Especially on iOS, you can kick out of the App Store pretty fast if you like bypassing in-app purchase in some way to say to save the 30% share of Apple. So that's important. Make sure to have the guidelines in place. They're like really well documented, but then again, make sure you have them also in the testing scenarios. Yeah, performance is also similar to security. It's really difficult sometimes because, as I said earlier, is that mobile apps rely on 3 layers. It's the area, it's the app front end, it's the API, and it's in most cases the backend. So you have to do the performance testing on all 3 layers, right? Do the performance testing on the app itself, on the API, and on the backend. Again, a heavy operation and not so easy task. Maybe you could also get some help from the external or from the developers, for example. Yeah, usability. I already said it like a couple of times that usability is key these days for mobile apps. So make sure you have some usability experts around. If not, read some best practices on usability. Also, iOS and Android are offering really good usability guidelines. Read them and make sure that everybody in the team knows them, especially in the early process of the discovery and product development phase, because finding like big usability issues, let's say at the end of the process in the testing phase, it might be too dangerous and too expensive to fix, and yeah, it's not good. Another scenario, yes, also mobile networks, is go out of the office, right? Don't test only in Wi-Fi. That's important. As I said earlier, depending on the app use case, it might be outside, it might be inside, it might be in the city, countryside. There are so many different ways of using the app. Remember the Pokemon example, people standing in the ocean. There might be no internet. There might be no internet connection at all, no cellular network, or even like a bad edge network. So you need to check like how the app is behaving with slow network responses, showing nice error messages, useful information. Don't show like stack traces. I have seen everything like that. So keep an eye on the mobile network speed. Battery testing is also quite interesting to see that the app is not consuming too much battery, especially when the app is in background or in standby mode. Check this information as well. As again, you can go to the system settings, see if your app is listed among the heavy used battery apps. In case your app is listed there, it's not good. Maybe you have to do some battery drainage leaking with Android Studio, for example, or with Xcode. You can monitor the battery usage and see maybe there's an open thread running or something is not closed in a good way. So keep an eye on it as well. And one more example that I found also quite interesting to test. It's not something that you should do often, but at some point when you have time, you can do it. It's local storage. So also again, if your app or if your mobile product is consuming or it has the possibility to work with local storage, like to say you take a photo, you can save the photo on the image. You should check what happens if, for example, the local storage is completely full. Is the app handling this use case? Is it crashing? Is it showing an error message? What's going to happen? So keep also the system of the storage in mind. And I don't know how many examples those were. These were a lot of scenarios that you could cover and you should cover at some point. But there are much more. I created once a mobile testing cheat sheet. No worries, you cannot read it, but you can find the PDF on my blog. It's free to use. There are like a lot of scenarios that can be covered during the mobile testing activities. And it should give you an idea of what can be done. And also this cheat sheet can be shared within your development team. And then maybe even developers can do some of the testing activities as well, which I think is really helpful. And one more piece of information and nugget is a mnemonic that I created. It's called mobile app testing. And what it stands for, this is something you have to find out. It's like a little homework. Also, there is a link. You will find this on the Ministry of Testing Dojo. Search for Ministry of Testing mobile app testing, or later on click on the link. And then you will find some more information on what this mnemonic is standing for. And it might also help you actually to remember some of the activities you should do when it comes to mobile testing. Okay, let's talk about some of the testing challenges. Also in the beginning, I said that there are like lots of challenges, and depending on also on your company setup, on your working environment, you might have different challenges. But for tonight, I brought two of them with me. And one of them is, of course, surprise, surprise, is device fragmentation, how to handle the plethora of mobile devices on the market. What you can do in order to make it more usable, let's say, or to really handle this challenge. And the second one is automation. Right? I would briefly want to talk about mobile test automation. A quick disclaimer, don't expect any mobile tool to be mentioned in 2 slides. I just give you an idea of what you can do with mobile automation, how to start and select back. And this is also a challenge that I hear from teams that, how I should start with test automation, and maybe I can give you some ideas. So how to tackle the device fragmentation? Yes, I mean, it's not an Android only problem anymore. It's also one problem that you have on iOS, for example. If you look at iOS and also Apple, they're now with iOS 14 and also upcoming with iOS 15, they're still supporting the iPhone 6s, if I'm not wrong. Yes, I think so. And this device is, how old is it? 6 years, 7 years already? So this is quite impressive. So you also have to keep in mind older devices with smaller screen sizes and everything. So you have also a fragmentation issue on iOS, not only on Android. However, on Android, it's still a big issue. So how to handle this? One thing, maybe you have seen it already some on my blog. I think I wrote a blog post about it, is basically to make a device grouping. So you define, for example, 3 device groups, and depending on your target group, on your customers, you group the devices into priority A group, for example. So in this example here, it's like, okay, in group A, with the highest priority, we have like the high-end devices, latest ones, top-notch technology, quad-core CPU, a lot of memory, a huge display, and maybe there might be some more requirements depending on your app. You put all those requirements that are important for your priority A group in this group bucket, and then you select the devices from your customers and put those devices in there. Let's say 10 to 15 devices per group. Then we have a second group with priority B. It's mid-range devices, not so powerful hardware, smaller screen sizes. The software is not older than 1 year, but maybe not in the latest version. Again, put 10 to 15 devices here, and saying that on the group B devices, still functionality must work, but there might be some performance issues, not that fast anymore. Maybe the transitions are not that nice, but still everything must work from a functionality point of view. And then we have group C. Priority C is that we have like old devices, small devices, less powerful hardware, smaller screens, even older browsers, older operating system versions. But still here, functionality should work. But here we can have like, let's say UI glitches, maybe a button is too small, the text is going out of it. So it's not perfect, but still it can be used, right? So, and with the help of the grouping of the devices, then you can, in your testing activities, also during development, let's say you pick 2 to 3 devices per group. So, and then in the end, let's say you have 10 devices that you have your, you can perform your testing activities, and you have narrowed down like the plethora of devices when it comes to device fragmentation. So that's one thing that I do usually, is like grouping down and focusing on the most used devices of the customers, and it helps a lot. And of course, yeah, everything based on the target customer. Yeah, let's talk about test automation. First of all, there is no silver bullet. So that's what I can tell you, is like, whenever you hear some tool vendors out there saying, yeah, we can do everything can be automated, no coding required. And yeah, there is no silver bullet. Every tool has its drawbacks, its pros and cons. And I cannot say, okay, Appium or Espresso or I don't know, Earl Grey, whatever's out there, XUI test is working to 100% in your environment. No, it might be completely different. Maybe it's none of the tools that I just mentioned will work at all in your company, in your environment. That's something that you need to find out. What I always suggest is to start simple with automation, because you should not like having the big picture, like some of the non-testing managers saying, yeah, we need to automate all the things, 100% coverage and all those buzzwords. I bet you have heard them. No, start simple, like really simple. Automate some easy flow and see if this works reliable and see if this is helpful for us, because the automation should support your testing activities. Yeah, it should help you. It should free up your time for valuable testing to look left and right what's really going on in the app or in the product itself. And it's important that it will never replace actual testing, right? It's automated things. You automate something, you tell the machine, okay, click 2 buttons and verify that a green text appears. But while doing those 3 actions, there might be like an error message coming around the corner, or some weird things happening which the machine totally ignores, because the machine focuses only on those parts. So that's important to know. What I always suggest, and when people ask me, is that really invest time, lots of time, in finding the right automation tool that fits your needs and requirements. What I've done in the past is I wrote long requirements list, what the tool should offer, and what is like really hard requirement, what's the soft requirement, what are pros and cons, and then making some evaluations, ticking some boxes. And then when I think I found a tool, I make like a small prototype, starting easy, starting simple, see if this works. Can I integrate this into the CI pipeline? And if yes, then maybe we can try it out, right? Which goes into that direction. Invest also time into your CI pipeline. So once you have a tool, if you found a tool, you need to invest and need to time to integrate the tool into the CI pipeline and in general in the testing infrastructure, right? It doesn't help you if you have a tool, for example, that runs only on your local machine, but not in the development pipeline. Then it has no benefit for the team. So that's also something that you need to invest for. And yes, also important, it's not a testing only or tester or like testing responsibility task. It's like, for me, it's also a whole team effort. Is the testing test automation, if you want to have it, is also then you need to involve the developers, because they should help you. They should help you a lot to setting up the pipeline, because maybe you are the only tester in the team and there may be like 4 developers, so they have more time, and they should really you should really get the help and the buy-in also from the team and overall from the organization, because otherwise you are just juggling with things. Yeah, you need to automate and you have no time. The sprint's coming to an end. We need to release, do some final manual testing or like some testing, and then you don't have time to automate, and you have, you know the deal, right? I mean, take your time, involve everybody, and then I think it will also be a success. Okay, let's talk about releasing of a product. Yes, you should release frequently, because it's important, because users expect a bug-free app. I have talked a lot now about user expectations and how to involve them, and users expect a bug-free app. And we all know that there's no bug-free software out there, but at least you should try your best, and the team should try its best to get the app out there. But we all know that the real nasty stuff is happening in the world. So that's what you always keep in mind. And therefore you should have like a more frequent release cycle, because there always something is going to happen. And in case something has happened, you should have a process in place that you can quickly release again and don't have to wait, let's say 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks or so. Yeah. What's helpful, especially also in my organization, is that we have planned code freezes and app releases to help to organize and to give guidance to other teams. So in my case, we have, I think, more than 20 teams working on the mobile app. And if we don't give them guidance in terms of when we are planning to go live with the next app version, that will be a huge mess and a huge communication overload. So what we defined is we have planned code freezes and app releases. So it's every 2 weeks we have code freeze, and every 2 weeks we have an app release, and everybody knows and everybody can stick to the schedule, and that it's really helpful to have like a regular cycle that's going on. What I just said, it's really helpful for the regular release, and every team knows what's going to expect and when the product is being live to the users. Also important for product managers, for stakeholders. They can be pushy at some point, saying, "Hey, I want to be live next day," but yeah, of course it's not possible, because this would mean that 20 other teams have to do some testing activities. When working with multiple teams, a so-called release train can help. I will show that in a minute. As I said, we have defined stages in which stage the product will be at what time, and this helps to give clarity and to calm down some of the expectations. Every team, it's important that need to catch the train in order to, when they want to release something. So for example, if you have a product that should be live in 4 weeks, you have to make sure that you catch the code freeze 2 or 3 days before the actual go live, depending on the go live process. And if a team hasn't catched this release train, it's gone, right? The train has passed, has left the station. And it's also important that you have to do the code freeze automatically and never accept late passengers, right? So, for example, if you see a developer rushing on a pull request, there are usually things going wrong, and you should not do that, right? So that's why a more automatic code freeze can help. So let's say on a fixed time and point in time, it's okay. We take the master branch and make a release branch out of it, and this is locked. Only like a handful of people have access to this, and that's it. You have to wait for the next one. So how can this frequent release can look like? So let's say we have a 2-week cycle, we have 10 days of coding, then at some point we have a code freeze, we can upload to Google, or we can already upload to Apple for the review. And once we have reached that point in time, we can say we have a beta testing phase, because this is an example now from our Enter team. We have a 7 days of beta testing cycle. So whenever we have the code freeze, we instantly upload to our beta testers. For 7 days, we get some really early feedback in case our product is failing like a lot, for example. And in case we don't get any like critical feedback from beta testers, we roll out to 20% for users for 2 days, just to see that the backend can rely, or it's reliable on new feature development and things. Everything, the system is going well. Then we go to 50% for some more days, see, okay, what's the majority of users saying about new features, about new app releases. And if this is also fine, we go straight to 100%. Yeah. And the good thing for example, on the Play Store, you can play around with those days. Yeah. You can also go straight to 100%. You can say 5%, 35%, 100%. So you're completely flexible. On iOS, you're a bit more strict to the different stages that are available. And then once the code freeze has happened, of course, we go to the next coding cycle, and then the release train and the release process itself goes along the way. What happens if you have the app out there? Of course, you have to monitor the app release, right? Checking the backend system, checking the log system. If everything goes smooth, what is also here, check the crash log, see what's going to happen with your system, because it's not helpful if you just press a button saying, okay, yeah, let's come to that stage in 2 weeks again. No, you really have to keep an eye on this. Somebody has to monitor it. Either it's a central platform team, for example, or it's like one of the specific feature teams doing this. And this is, you can put some monitors, dashboards in your team space or in a digital space to watch out for, or send notifications in case something is crashing. That's important. You should also check social media and feedback in the app stores, as I said earlier. Monitor this as well, because first of all, you get some valuable feedback from your customers. And second of all, you can maybe react in case of something really bad is happening that all the other systems haven't found yet. You can react fast, and then maybe you can ship a hotfix release. And yeah, that's just what I said. React fast in case of a critical bug. Have also like a hotfix plan in place in case you have like at 50% of the stage rollout, you notice that there's like a critical bug happen. You should stop the rolling out of 200%. Fix the 50% app release, upload straight to 50%, see if everything is fine. If everything is fine, then proceed with the rollout. Otherwise, you mess up even more. So there are a lot of things that you have to consider, and this is, as you can see, it's a team effort, right? This is not something that 1 or 2 testers in a team should do. It's like a whole team effort, and this plays along with the completely mobile test management process, what I have seen in the past. So this brings me to an end. Is the key takeaways. First of all is, as you have seen, the mobile technology has changed our lives, also in a private perspective, but also on a professional perspective, because we have to cover so many aspects on the technical side, like the mobile front end, the APIs, the back end, and the releasing, the processes around those stuff, the monitoring out there. So there's a lot of things that's going to happen, and it changed our working life. Still, mobile market is still growing. It's important to know it's not declining; it's still growing, which is great. We have a lot of potential, and there's a lot of new technology coming around. Yeah, users have high expectations to product and services. They will delete an app, for example, if it requires a registration or it's crashing on time on the first usage. It's important to get to know your customers and to interact with them. You should really define test scenarios based on your app and tech stack. This is something that I showed you, like the huge mind map and everything, but take really some time and define scenarios. You don't need to write like define test plans. Okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. No, that's a waste of time. You should really focus on scenarios. What are the bigger scenarios in the product? What are the critical paths here? And then you should focus on those critical issues and scenarios. And then with that, you get the best out of it. Identify your challenges and start to tackle them. Your challenge might be devices, fragmentation, CI pipeline, automation, defining testing scenarios, getting testing information, test data, all those kind of things. Everybody has its own challenge, and you should start tackling them sooner than later. You should start simple. And you should reconsider your approach from time to time. I mean, I'm working in the mobile space now. Then, what is it? 12 years now, and I think we have used the third or fourth automation tool since then. So we are reconsidering our approach from time to time because technology evolves, our environment evolves, the tech stack changes. So that's also something that you should keep in mind when working with automation tools, with scripts, with other applications that support your testing activities. And with that, I would say thank you very much. Thank you for joining in for the webinar. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to tackle them now.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very interesting. And we do not know what happened with our technical glitch halfway through.
I have no idea.
It just happens.
I'm sorry for that.
There's other people having glitches, so we'll just put it down to gremlins on the internet. There's a few questions here, and we'll spend a few minutes just to answer them. So, in your opinion, Daniel, which app is a great example of really good design and meets user expectations? The app that you mark all other apps against?
That's a good question, difficult one. I think one app that comes to my mind was I haven't used it lately, also due to Corona again. It's Airbnb. I kind of liked it in the first place when it came out because it's long on the market, but back then it was really fresh. It was like really clean and lean. It wasn't cluttered with any kind of, UI elements, buttons, drop down. So it was really like, okay, if I remember, you had like 2 inputs, where you want to go, how long, and with whom, like people. And this was really something that's like, okay, this is really simple, easy to use. I mean, it has changed over time. You can see that the product evolved as well, but it's the simplicity of things. Yeah, that's what I really like. And it's not only apps that I really like and that really think it's great, but it's also sometimes technology behind the curtain, so to say. So for example, if you're using an iPhone, or now it's also an Android, it's the face unlock of your device. It's some system functionality that I really like, because you just take a look at your phone and it's unlocked. You can use the product. You can use this also on banking apps, for example, or any kind of app. You can enable this. And this is also a functionality that is not seen by the user, but it's appreciated by the users. And that's something that I really have always in mind. Like, it should be that simple that in best case, users don't see it, but they like it.
Yes, certainly the sort of the holy grail of UX. Next question. How do you test battery consumption caused to the mobile app? Did you find any ways to automate it, or is it purely manual?
I haven't done it automated in a way. Maybe there's something that can be automated in that regards, but what I've done is I have like one device charged to 100%. And another one that is like below the critical threshold, depending on the platform. Usually it's like 10%. When the platforms, they're cutting off vibration, for example, or cutting off some sensors, and I perform my activities on those devices. Is there issue on connection.
The people are, as I was saying, there's people with having connection issues on this call. It's not just you, Daniel.
So that's what I do with that. That's pure like manual battery testing. But what I also do then is like connecting the device to Android Studio, to Xcode, and then use the tools provided by the platforms or by the development IDEs. There you get some battery monitoring. You can perform an action, you see how the battery consumption goes up, goes down, and this is something that I do. So it's for me pure like manually, and it's also nothing that I do like on say on a daily basis or before every release, right? I do it like on major releases. Say, okay, I take some time. Let's focus on battery. Let's see how it behaves. And this is what I do basically.
Okay, good. So it's one of those definitely. So you're saying from your experience, it's a manual test because it's quite difficult. It's quite expensive to set up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I took the luxury of putting in a question here for myself. I have so many, but I just limited myself to one. In your own experience, do Apple and Apple iOS and Google Android, do they react well if you find defects in their APIs? I'm thinking a very recent one, which was the exposure notification API problem with the battery draining.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think we usually filed some issues on the issue trackers, and we have again in the company we have like some contact persons, or each on Apple and on the Google side. So we have like customer success managers, whatever they call themselves. We contact them in this kind of way if it's like really critical that we see, and then we get some feedback. But in most cases, I don't think there's a winner. So it depends on the issue, on the severity of the issue that they see. So no.
Okay, good to know. And the last question we have: does your organization create their own simulators to test apps against multiple devices and mobile software, or do you use stock?
Yeah, stock. We use stock iOS, stock Android emulators. I mean, on the emulator side, we can pick different ones, right? That's what we use basically on the developer side. They use the simulator emulators, and then also sometimes, depending on the tester, they also use simulators on their like really ad hoc testing, doing something really quick. Because sometimes building the app and putting it on the device, it takes some time. But all the automation stuff that is handled then on real devices. We have a Mac Mini setup, like in the data center, where we have connected, I don't know how many devices where we can execute all our automation in parallel and then get us some feedback later on. Yeah.
Okay. One very late entry question, which I need to ask. After working in mobile testing for 12 years, do you still get nervous around release time? Every person on this call is very interested in this answer. And the person has asked if you've ever been nervous.
Of course. I mean, that's part of the game, right? I'm not saying I'm that nervous anymore because we have like a lot of measures up front where things should have been covered, especially during the release testing phase when we say, okay, we have code freeze. And then also even before on a pull request level, we have like at least 2 other developers have to review the code. The testers take a look at the code. Then we have the static analyzers. You know the drill, like that the whole CI pipeline already is there. But still, whenever we have some bigger releases, like some bigger projects, some bigger products going out, then of course, but then we start again small and we go maybe like 10, 15%. And then we're checking, okay, is the app reliable enough? And then, but what I'm more curious and more like nervous about is the API reliable enough? Is the backend reliable enough? Can it cover like a lot of requests? Have we thought about scaling a lot? Have we thought about having enough performance on the backend? Can we scale later on with like cloud services? And that's something that we're thinking about. And sometimes, of course, this makes us nervous. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we have all been there, like doing critical hot fixes and things like that, and working late night. I once was I was like never released on a Friday, we know, but there was like one developer. It was 8 years ago. They was like, yeah, let's ship something. It's really small. I did some of my testing. I said, yeah. Then I was back home commuting, and the app was just crashing. I left off the station, went to the next train back to the office. We stayed like at whole Friday night to fix this stuff, and then I mean, it happens. It happens to all of us, right? And
Yes.
that's okay.
Never
As long
release on
as
Friday.
exactly, that's what we never done.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have to react fast. That's the thing. And in case something is really happening, you should be brave enough to tell to the users, right? I mean, hey, sorry, we made a mistake. Okay, it can happen. Let's move on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Daniel gets nervous sometimes too.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that is all our questions. Just want
you.
to say thank you very much, Daniel, for your time
You're
this
welcome.
evening and for very calmly getting over our technical glitch. And thank you, everybody else, for joining this evening, and enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.